Good evening, Avram. I don't know if you're talking, but if so, I don't hear you.
Hey, you hear me?
I do.
Okay.
All right, there's Avram. Boom, boom. Pew. There you are.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. Let's see. What we talked about today. Um, let's see. Well, we could talk about PC builds and how much more expensive they're getting. I just updated our best PC builds, and everything had to take a step back because the cost of the cost of graphics cards is really out of control.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but especially NVIDIA graphics cards are getting more and more and more expensive,
Yeah.
more money than they were even a month ago. So
Wow.
you know, it's tough, uh, tough sledding right now. For it's a tough time to buy. It's a tough time to build, but we can talk about what you can build um, at this stage of the game.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. That's all correct. Okay. And did you see? Did you see the
Yes, I
rest?
saw the yes, I saw the
Excellent.
upstream.
All right. All right. Which mic are you on?
I'm on the Bumblebee mic.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
There's a hiss that I don't feel like is
Huh.
normally there.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's bizarre. I'm on the same mic as always, the Bumblebee mic.
Okay. It's occasionally dipping down. It's really interesting. It's as if there's a noise cancellation that's finding it. Anyway,
Hmm.
no big
Hmm.
deal. It's not.
Oh,
It's
wait
not
a
anything.
second. Let me do something.
Okay.
Any better?
No. No. Nothing
Okay. I
changed.
had like a power brick next to it. I was wondering maybe that was causing interference.
Gotcha. Yeah. No. There was no change on that. It was a good catch though.
Okay.
All right. No big deal. All right. I'm good if you are. All right.
Yeah.
Hit record. Hit start. And here we go. This week, DoorDash offers buy now, pay later. Xbox leaks a new user interface feature. Google sues scammers, and a new AI copyright ruling is shaping the tech landscape. It's Sunday, March 23rd, 2025, and this is episode 673 of F5 Live Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, X, or Instagram, through our live streaming services, Twitch, Kick, Rumble, LinkedIn, or YouTube, where you can join the community and get ad-free episodes of F5 Live and Piltch, plus interviews as they're edited, or on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways you can do that. The first is Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you're not able to join us live, that is okay. PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you'll find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. Well, we are right back in at Avram. Starting to feel some normalcy here. 2 shows in a row. How are you doing this week?
Not bad, not bad. It's a long week, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely been a long week. We've got another one coming up Tuesday. If you want to watch live, we will be doing coverage from Synapse Summit. It'll be on our Twitch stream, so definitely check that out. I don't remember the hours, 10 to 2 or something like that, but we'll put it out on social media. So yeah, another long week coming up. I haven't heard anything about any big announcements this week like HP did this past week. So at least it should be a little calmer, right?
Yep, hopefully.
Have you had any time to work on any interesting projects?
Not so much this week. It's the week just kind of shot by, so I didn't get to work on anything too interesting. More kind of keeping track of what's going on. Obviously, NVIDIA GTC was a big deal this week.
Yeah.
More high, data center stuff. More high-end chips for doing AI in the data center, and that's kind of was the highlight of the week.
Plus those crazy expensive little mini PCs.
Yeah.
Which apparently Asus also put one out. I think I saw something this evening. Asus? Acer? Somebody also put out a $3,000 mini AI PC.
Yeah, I don't know what the market is for those.
It seems like the market's about the same size as the PC itself. Pretty small.
Yep.
But they're putting a lot of time and effort into these things, so I don't know. You know me. I'm always skeptical on these things. Jumping hard into something early, trying to catch a bit of a fever dream. I don't know. I said it about 3D TVs and VR headsets, and it's just, I don't know. Cryptocurrencies. There were a lot of people trying to catch that wave, and I feel like this is kind of in the same boat. But I guess we'll see, right?
Yep, I guess we'll see.
Well, we have a lot of stuff to talk about, not just because it's our second show back from a very long break, but lots of stuff happened, like we have alluded to. So let's get down to the news. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. Well, society might be collapsing around us, and one of the signs of that is that through DoorDash, you can now finance a burrito. You would think that I'm joking, but unfortunately, I am not. The company announced this week that they have started a new relationship with Klarna, the buy now, pay later service that has spawned a number of other services similar. You'll find it traditionally on sites for, say, clothing or furniture, larger purchases. But not anymore. It's not just for large purchases. You can, if you get a midnight McDonald's craving, you can now pay for it in 4 equal installments. Why? I have no idea. The only rule appears to be that the order must be $35. So you'd have to buy a lot of chicken nuggets at 3 a.m., but you could still do it. It has to be $35 or more, and then you can pay for it in 4 installments. Now, there are some benefits to the concept, not for DoorDash, but to the concept of things like Klarna. So long as they're one of the services that report to the credit bureaus, you can actually help your credit using these things. I know my brother knocked his credit up like 60 points or something using Klarna to buy some dress shirts a couple of times. So there's definitely some benefit to the concept, but it's a little, for me, Avram, it's a little different than putting it on a credit card. It's a different type of financing, and it feels different to me.
It's another line of debt, right?
True.
And I mean, after all, right, this problem is already addressed by people paying by credit card, right? I'm not sure whether Klarna's interest rates are better or worse than a credit card. But
they're generally pretty good. They're generally pretty good. I'll tell you that. I followed Adam's footsteps and gave it a try to see if I could correct some issues with my credit as well, and I had good luck with it. The financing charges weren't much, but again, for Taco Bell, it seems a bit much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like you should be financing anything that gets absorbed into your body.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like, unless it's medicine or something and you desperately need it, but
sure.
But I don't think you should be financing food.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, they're all looking to. Everybody wants to get you owing the money, right? So
it's true.
Everybody wants to get you owing the money. So I'm sure Klarna likes this. DoorDash probably gets a cut of whatever Klarna makes, so they like it. Whether it's a good deal for you, I have to say, like, almost nothing that you get with DoorDash is a necessity. Right?
Yeah.
You could not have that meal.
Unless you're really sick and you're, door dashing something from CVS or Walgreens or something like that. That's a very small, limited thing.
Right. So I don't know.
I had the beginning of a I had the beginning of a migraine. The first night we were in Vegas for CES this year, and I couldn't really get out to go get anything, and I think it was on Uber Eats. Doing that was cheaper than getting an actual Uber to and from a CVS anyway. So it's there are very small windows where it might be a little different, but yeah, generally the things that you get on Uber Eats or DoorDash or Postmates, or there's another one whose name has escaped me. Generally, luxury and big luxury.
Right. A luxury you don't need to pay.
Right.
So I advise against it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just a luxury, but like it's an expensive luxury. Noelle and I were somewhere, and we were at a restaurant. We're looking at the numbers. I think maybe it was Wingstop, and just for the heck of it, I pulled out the phone. I pulled up Uber Eats, and I'm looking. Oh, so it's like 20% more, 25% more just to get started, before all the fees on top of it. Just the actual menu items are 25% more, and then there's fees and tips, and an extra $15 or $18 on top of all of that. When it's Wingstop, you probably have one close by. Just go get it, right?
Right. Yeah, lately I've really not, like, there have been times when I had to get food and I've really like gone to the place to pick it up because it's just so much cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then, to then obfuscate it one more level and add financing charges to pay it over, what, 8 weeks? I think you make a payment every 2 weeks. So to pay for your Wingstop over 8 weeks, 4 payments, with finance charges and the whole thing on top of it, it's all
I mean, it'll be out of your intestine by then.
certainly hope so.
Maybe on your waist, I don't know, but out of your intestine by then for sure.
If it's not, Uber Eating something from CVS isn't going to be enough to solve the problem.
That's true.
That
That's true.
Magnesium, whatever, the clear liquid, that's not going to get it out.
Yeah.
It's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So generally online, this has been met with chaos. I don't know that I've seen any positive coverage of this announcement, which for me is always interesting, right? Because even something like this Snow White movie, right, that has IMDb has it at a 2.2, I think, and Rotten Tomatoes has it at about a 43%. There's no consensus even on something as simple as Snow White. Right? But this seems to be universally panned. No, other than DoorDash and Klarna, I haven't seen anybody speak positively of this move, which is really an interesting situation.
Well, you know where you're going to find out when you see whether it's still there in a year.
Yeah, true.
If it's still there in a year, then that means that people are signing up.
People are using it. Yeah.
There's nobody who's gonna like going into debt, right? Like nobody. There's no positive coverage of payday loans either, and yet people still do them.
True. Yeah. And
There shouldn't be positive coverage.
Right. And we have a big company based out of here, although I don't see ads for them anymore. I know they're still around, but that's how they make their money. They do all kinds of financial services for free, but they also do payday loans. And yeah, nobody ever has anything positive to say about them either, but people are using them. That's an interesting point. But yeah, if in 6 or 12 months it disappears, then we'll know that not only do people not like the idea, they're also not using the idea. But if it's still there 6, 12, 18 months from now, that means people are actually using it. Guys, don't. Seriously, don't. Don't. I don't know what else to say. Don't. It's a bad idea. Anytime you mentally put offset money, you screw things up. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. I'm no financial genius, but I did hear a political commentator this week say, look straight down the lens and say Dave Ramsey's rolling in his grave and he's not dead. So that was a pretty, because Dave Ramsey's not a fan of really financing anything. So yeah. I think our recommendation is skip this. If you can't pay for it, don't pay for it. Go pick it up or make something at home. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. Well, Avram, it's not just food orders that are getting more expensive these days, right?
Nope. We are seeing a lot of price hikes on, particularly on GPUs. Now there's a lot of reasons for the price hikes. So the number one reason is that we're in a transitionary period. So NVIDIA just came out with its 5070 Ti, 5080, and 5090 GPUs, which you cannot buy unless you buy them from a scalper. And so they kind of stopped manufacturing the old versions, the 4090, the 4080, the 4070 Ti, stopped manufacturing those. They also seem to have cut back on the mid-range cards, like the 4060 Ti and the 4060, because the price of those, you can get them, but the price of them has shot way up. And AMD cards, there's some new AMD cards, and AMD's older cards are also jumping in price. So this is a terrible time to get a graphics card. Now, has there ever been a good time? I don't know, 6 months ago. But who actually is providing some value? Intel actually, Intel cards such as the A380 are actually a decent deal on the low end. So I had to update our list of recommended PC builds this week. I'm going to show it to everyone. But I'm going to say that there's kind of disaster going on right now in terms of the price of graphics cards. And in the case of some of these things, what we really had to do was say, here's a good graphics card for this build if you can get it. So I maintain every month this page of recommended builds by price. And right now you can build a sub $500 gaming PC with an Intel Core i3 chip um, and a 1 terabyte SSD uh, and a discrete graphics card. And the discrete graphics card to get for this low end is the Intel Arc A380. That card, I mean, you'll be able to play a fair number of games at 1080p ultra settings. Some games you'll have to drop down to mid-range settings. You could forget about playing at higher than 1080p resolution. You could forget about ray tracing. But you'll have a decent 1080p gaming machine for $480 if you follow our advice. Um, so not terrible, right? Um, we save some money here by getting an inexpensive case. You could spend more on that. We save some money here by getting an inexpensive power supply. Um, but overall, you can not do too badly for $480. Now, let's say you could jump up to an $800 or so budget. Then you could go to a Core i5. Now, you might notice that the um, the Intel chips we're recommending here are the 14th gen chips. They're not the newest generation Core Ultra Core Ultra chips. Why? The Core Ultra chips are more money and less performant. Um, so you're better off with the 14th gen chips. Um, so so here we're saying to get an AMD Radeon 7600, which will get you better 1080p gaming, um, much more playable, get you more games to play at 1080p Ultra. Um, you can jump up to 32 gigs of RAM, get a better SSD, get a slightly nicer case, bigger power supply. Um, so not a bad setup if what you want is 1080p gaming. Now, starts to get more complicated when you start to jump up into the $1,000 range. Now here we're recommending the NVIDIA RTX 4060. This is often over $400, although we saw somebody selling it for $369. Just a month ago, it was $299 everywhere. Now the 4060 is, you're lucky to find it for under $400. You're often seeing it for $400. The 4060 card is really good for 1080p gaming, could kind of start to touch playing games at 2K, uh, can handle some ray tracing at 1080p. Um, we also recommend getting the Ryzen 7 5700X 3D CPU for this because it has lots of 3D cache, which really helps with 1080p gaming. Uh, and with this recommendation, you can actually go all the way up to a 2 terabyte SSD to hold more games. So not bad, but you see the price is increasing on the GPU. Now, if we go up and, a month ago, we were recommending the 4060 for our $800 build, but now we can't. So now the next step up, the $1,500 PC, most of the money for this goes into the 4060 Ti card. So it's a step up from the 4060, slightly better frame rates, and yet you're spending like $200 more to get that small step up to the 4060 Ti. So, big um, price increase to get from the 4060 to the 4060 Ti, which is the next level up. Here we also recommend going with a with a slightly bigger power supply, 750 watts, with a nicer, faster SSD, the SSD 50X. So a nicer build here. Now, when we jump up to $2,000, this is where we're going to start to recommend GPUs that you may not be able to get at this price. The 5070 Ti, which is the new kind of mid-range card from NVIDIA, is supposed to cost $749. Supposed to. You cannot if you're lucky, you may see it for that. But chances are you'll be seeing it on the only place you'll be seeing it right now is eBay. How much is it on eBay? Let's find out right now. 70 Ti. So 749 is what we would want it to be. We're now seeing it for $1,100.
Woo.
Right? And so it is a big expensive step up, but there's really no other card to recommend if you want to take a serious step up from the 4060 Ti. So what to do? Wait, hopefully, until there's more of these produced and you can get one at retail prices, which should be in the 749 bracket, because it is just crazy how much it costs. Then I mean, it can play games at 4K at sort of mediocre frame rates at 1080p. So the other thing is we're stepping up here to a Ryzen 7 7800X3D, another thing with 3D cache that helps with the 1080p gaming. Finally, our dream machine here has an RTX 5090. Now, an RTX 5090's MSRP is $2,000. Let's figure out what we think we could find it for. Before I hit enter here, Scott, how much do you think a 5090 will cost?
What did we say MSRP was?
2,000.
5090 MSRP of 2,000. If you're going to find it, I mean, wouldn't be surprised to see it at least 2x.
Okay, let's see.
Probably 2.5. Yeah.
$38.99, $47.24, $37.50. So close to 2x. In many cases, a little bit less than 2x.
And several well over.
Yeah, and several well over. So, yeah, very, very expensive, right? So the price of these graphics cards is insane. The price of CPUs has gone up a little bit too, but the main driver of higher prices is GPUs. Now, one more thing. I hate to remind everybody, but we're also facing tariffs. So nobody wants to say it's not really clear yet exactly how much more graphics cards will cost when the full impact of the new tariffs is known, but there's a good chance that GPUs will be impacted. There's a good chance that other components will be impacted. It's a little hard to say. We know that I think it's already been the case for a couple of months that there's a 10% tariff on all goods from China, and now it's going up to 20%. So if they're manufactured in mainland China, there's issues, but if they're manufactured in Taiwan or they're manufactured in Vietnam or Singapore, then it's not a problem. If any part of them is completed or manufactured in Mexico, then that could be also be an issue, um, because we know that there's some tariffs there, although those tariffs have been sort of on and off, so we can't totally predict. But the Chinese tariffs of 20% doesn't seem like there's any pushback on that. Doesn't seem like there's going to be any lowering of those tariffs.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of the financial people have been saying is there's no, like, from day to day it seems impossible to predict what it's going to look like. So up and down and on and off and left and right, and
I
the
mean,
the agency that is responsible for uh, actually collecting and implementing tariffs is about 200 people, and they say they don't even have the resources to be able to do what we're talking about right now, let alone splitting it up. So who knows? There's gonna be chaos from
yeah,
that, and chaos is
yeah,
never better. It's my point. The chaos never makes things less expensive or makes them even. Chaos always raises prices.
yes. So yeah, chaos. Um, there's going to be chaos. Um, so it's going to make prices worse. We've had a number of laptop vendors that have said things to us like we can't tell you what the price of a product is now that's coming out because we don't know how much we're going to have to add for tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difficult time to even know what you're going to be paying for things a month or two down the road. I mean, you might be better off spending these exorbitant prices now because they might be subject to bigger tariffs later.
Though on the video cards, I can't imagine 100%
No,
increase.
no,
But
that's not a tariff, right?
right, but I
That's
mean,
that's
it.
scalping.
Yeah, exactly. But even paying the exorbitant price, paying the scalper price is not still going to be way more than even after the tariffs kick
Right?
in. So,
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to say. I don't actually know what the manufacturing point is for a lot of these
mm-hmm.
um, components. Like if they're manufactured in Taiwan, they don't get hit with the tariff. Um, and there's some interesting questions about how companies could get around the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, although that adds costs too, but uh, if they manufacture the video card in, let's say, Shenzhen, but then they ship it to Taiwan, and Taiwan they do something to it, and then they ship it from there to the United States. Will that be sufficient to kind of get around the tariff?
Right.
Um,
I suspect
so
I suspect there's going to be a lot of testing of those waters
right,
over the next couple months.
right, exactly. So we don't know what companies will do to mitigate. I mean, I did an interview and a story about this back in September, um, and interviewed someone from CTA, and he said, you know, it has to be some type of significant change to the product for it to count as being finished in the other country. Like, the US is watching, so you can't just add a
Mm-hmm.
screw or something and call it a
Right.
day. But I don't know if only 200 people are watching. Um, how much? How much are they going to enforce and police that if
Right.
like it comes to the United States from a third country?
Right.
So
Especially
I guess we'll
especially
have to
when
see.
they're especially when those 200 people are saying we don't have the resources to deal with the structure of tariffs we have now, and we're talking about doing tiered certain industries, all kinds of. They're like, there's no way we don't have the resources for that.
Right, right. So, yeah. Um, anyway, it's so I guess my bottom line is go check out our article on the best PC builds on Tom's Hardware, because you can still build something pretty cheap that can play 1080p games. It's when you're getting up into the 2K and 4K gaming, and you want ray tracing, that the cost gets higher.
Gotcha. And so, right now, the biggest contributor is the video cards.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I heard
Yes.
you right on that.
Other parts could get worse.
Sure.
But there's no shortage of the other components.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You can always find them in stock.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So, because like, for me, this machine is due for an upgrade. The one that runs the show. I don't think you guys watching the show get to hear it, but if I do this right now and Avram were to talk, right? If I do that transition, your voice jitters in my head. The final product doesn't seem to do it. But during live, I get jitter in my head, in my headset, because I see processor spikes. So I've been looking at maybe a new board in proc. I don't need a video card.
Well, then it's not going to be that bad for you.
And in that
it's not going to be that bad for you at the moment.
So in that case, right now might be the time to do it before tariffs kick in, because that's where those are the components that don't currently have a big built-in, nonsense meter on them the way video cards do.
Right. Correct.
Got it. Just verifying that I understood everything correctly, because some money's going to have to be spent here soon. So there it is. Well, Avram, as always, definitely appreciate the information, because this isn't the kind of thing that I track all the time, and I know it's the kind of thing that you do track. So definitely appreciate it. And as always, I look forward to what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by EXA. EXA brings the latest technology to gamers, offering the most immersive products for the ultimate gaming experience. They've compiled the best elements of cutting-edge ENC tech, the latest in Bluetooth 5.0 and 7.1 surround, plus extra features into their headsets so everyone can enjoy a sensational gaming experience. And they've got headsets for Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Plus, they won't break the bank. Learn more about the headsets that are available and any current promotions by going to f5live.tv/exa. Well, this week, something interesting happened. Microsoft accidentally outed themselves on some work that might or might not be happening internally. They put up a blog post entitled "Opening a Billion Doors with Xbox," and that post had as part of it an image at the top, right? Big hero image. We have them too. This hero image, it's on the website right now. If you go to PLUGHITZlive.com/the-upstream, you'll see the image. It had on the left an Xbox Series S and X with the controllers. It had an ROG Ally. Lighting's weird. It had an Ally. It's got a phone, tablet, laptop, TV. A fairly standard Xbox user interface, but you know, none of us leave photos that come out of companies like Microsoft alone. And so what happened was people zoomed in on said screen to find that the tabs across the top showed recently added, installed, owned, Game Pass, Steam. Steam, huh? Tell me a little bit more about that. So, I think it was The Verge reached out to Microsoft and said, hey, tell us about that little tab. And the picture changed. They didn't hear back from Microsoft, but the picture on the blog post changed. And it changed to one with very different user interface and a different set of devices. So, obviously, the rumor mill, the speculation mill got started. And what does it mean? Most likely what it means is that we know that Microsoft is working on their own competitor for the Ally, something in that arena, some sort of a portable Xbox gaming PC. Not terribly surprising. The Switch 2 is coming. The Ally has been a big success. The Legion, is it the Legion Go, has been a success as well. So it's not the Steam Deck, right? Not terribly surprising that Microsoft would want to get in on this business. So with that, likely what they're working on is an enhancement to the Xbox app that works like the launcher on the Ally or the Legion, where you can see the games in a more simplified user interface that's controller accessible and things like that. Or if you've ever been, interestingly, if you've ever been to a place like the Forge here in Tampa that uses a system called GG Leap on the PCs, it's again very similar. All the games are listed. It opens the launcher in the background when you select the game. It really kind of makes the experience easier. It's similar to the Steam Deck, the Steam OS, or Big Picture Mode interface in Steam, except that it's platform agnostic. So likely that's what they're working on. We know that Microsoft, Xbox, and Steam have been working pretty closely together. Microsoft games are available through Steam a lot of the time. So not terribly surprising that the first platform they'd be testing with for this theoretical Xbox interface for other devices would be Steam. The pretty open interface. They've already got a relationship. Not surprising. My suspicion is this won't be the only one. My guess is if this is what this interface actually is, what we will see in the future is filters by launcher. Just in general, you'd be able to have all your games there, filter down to Steam or Epic or EA or whatever. Microsoft's already got a relationship with EA. EA Play titles are available through Game Pass. We know Microsoft now owns Activision, which means BattleNet titles. They'll have control over BattleNet as well. So, this is likely just a test, and they put this image out on accident. Somebody saw it in the asset library and went, oh, that's a great picture, and chose that one without realizing that it's supposed to be for the future. But it's definitely an interesting move, even if Microsoft weren't to put out this handheld that they've been working on, that even people inside of Microsoft have said is in the works. Even if it were to get canceled, having an interface like this for things like the Ally, the Legion, seems like it would be a good move for Microsoft.
Microsoft needs to do that. they need to have a console-friendly UI, because this is a part of the ecosystem that is exploding right now,
Hmm.
and Microsoft is been absolutely ignoring it at their
Yeah.
own peril. It's been very foolish. This is the biggest thing. I mean, what happened since the Steam Deck came out
Yeah.
is we've seen a lot of Steam Deck competitors, and they're hobbled by Windows
Right.
because they try to put their own UI on top. It doesn't work very well, and there are problems. The ROG Ally and the Ally X, I
Hmm.
think it is,
Yeah.
suffer from that. Uh, the
Although,
Lenovo Legion Go.
so the interface that's on the Ally, that is their version of this, um, is fairly solid. I've got one up in the office. I meant to have it down here instead of just the box for this topic. Um, but the unified interface on that is pretty good. Obviously, it could be better, but they're not Microsoft, right? They
Right.
don't have all the same capabilities of relationships that Microsoft has with being Xbox, owning Activision, already having a direct connection to EA Play, already having an established relationship with Steam, right? Being able to build a, you know, the one ring,
Yeah,
the one launcher to
I
rule them
mean,
all is an easier task for Microsoft because they have access to the operating system. They could, if they wanted to, they could make the thing run at shell instead
right,
of regular Explorer, which is how GG Leap works, which is why I go back to it because that software is fantastic. Um, and they have all these relationships. They're the ones that are best poised to make this work. And you're right.
right, right,
They've totally been sitting on their thumbs. They haven't touched this
right,
at all. Um, Satya, love him or hate him, um, the Xbox division has never been his focus since he took over. It's just never has been. And with the loss of some of the people at the top, both of the hardware and services division, with Panos leaving and with Major Nelson leaving, a lot of long timers that could have helped push this leaving. I'm not surprised it took too long. Plus, it's Microsoft. Taking a little too long is their is their brand.
well,
But yeah, they need to get this done.
I mean, we know that I think you're going to see more companies get into the space, get into the
Mm-hmm.
hardware space. Um, I think this is actually probably the best thing to happen to PC gaming in years, because you're kind of merging console and PC gaming.
Yeah.
The and the price of those isn't as likely to go up because they're using AMD integrated graphics, so they're not subject to the same types of shortages.
Right.
Granted, you can't expect the same type of, you can't expect ray tracing or whatever, but you can get really decent playability. So, if you saw at CES, Lenovo is coming out with a version of the Legion Go S that has Steam OS on it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So now and I talked to the guy from Steam at Lenovo's booth, and he said, we don't think this won't, our goal is not for this to be the last. So now Steam is going out and they're conquesting.
Yeah.
These are devices that should, from Microsoft's perspective, their PCs that should be running Windows,
Right.
but they're going to be running Steam OS because Windows is too heavy it's not been made for this purpose.
Yeah.
So if Microsoft doesn't come out with a version of Windows that, or a UI for Windows that makes this really good,
Hmm.
they can expect to lose more ground to Valve.
Yeah. Now, of
And
course, by going with SteamOS, there is the Linux limitation, right? Valve has done a pretty good job of building the emulation technology, and it's working better and better every day. But you do still have the Linux limitation, and I don't think it's the business that Valve wants to be in. But they're doing it because Microsoft's not.
right, so Microsoft could have nipped this in the bud.
Yep.
Uh, they still they still could,
Hmm.
but they have to
And
do a good job.
this image is an indication that they appear to be interested in doing it, because the image that's on the TV looks like a regular Xbox, and then I didn't think to bring up load the image into the system. But then the image that is on the Ally, and it's the white Ally. It's the original Ally. Um, the image that's on there is almost exactly the same, right? It's intended to show that the UI would be consistent from Xbox to Ally. Now, the UI that shows up on the laptop, on a regular laptop, is not the same UI. And I'll just point out that the laptop looks suspiciously like a MacBook. Um, but it could also be one of the newer Surface laptops, because they have uh, similar front lips. Um, but it does look suspiciously like a MacBook. Um, but then again, the phone looks weirdly like a Windows phone, the Lumia. So anyway, I think they're trying to say that the user experience would be console like, using this thing on the handheld, which I think is important. Um, it's it is a limitation. Now there's huge benefits to this, right? Because it's just Windows, which means there's emulation and all kinds of things that you can do on the Ally that you can't do on the Xbox, or that you can't do on, say, an iPad or something like that, because Apple limits what you can put on your device. But Microsoft doesn't, right? You can put whatever you want, whether you should or shouldn't. That's a whole different topic. You can, and so you can play other stuff. They don't care where it comes from. It can come from Steam or Epic or wherever. So there are huge benefits to this capability, and if they are legitimately trying to bring the Xbox user experience down to the handhelds to make it feel like you're holding an Xbox in your hand, seems like a brilliant move to me. And being able to filter that experience to to the different launchers and be able to incorporate all of them in one user experience seems like an even better idea, so that you're not having to, I want to play this game on the little handheld, switch over to Steam or switch over to Epic or switch over to EA Play, or if you have one Xbox looking thing and you can launch The Sims or you can launch Fortnite or whatever, all from the same Xbox looking experience, Microsoft can claw their way back into this thing. So, whether or not that is what's happening here, we don't know. This is clearly all speculation based on a single image. The fact that as soon as questions were asked, they pulled the image is a good sign for speculation. um, and the fact that we know they're working on hardware, we know they're working with partners on this stuff, all kind of does lead us to believe that this is what's in development. So fingers crossed they get this together before Steam literally eats their lunch. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. So let me tell you about an interesting scam that's been happening online, particularly through Google Maps. It goes like this. You lock your keys in your car, and you need a locksmith. So you grab your phone, you open Google Maps, or you open Google, you search for locksmith, you find one, there's a little button on it that says make a call, you click it, it makes a call, you talk to the locksmith that you think you're calling, they say yes, no problem, we'll be there in 15 minutes. Somebody shows up, fixes the problem, gets you into your car, and charges you way more than you thought you were going to pay, but they've already completed the job, so you pay it, they leave, and then you go on Google and say, these people are too expensive, bad review. Now, let me tell you what happened. Somebody else, not the business, not the locksmith, went to Google Maps and made a suggestion for an edit. They edited the phone number. The business owner maybe didn't create the listing, maybe doesn't check their Google My Business frequently. They don't know that this update has been made. The new phone number gets verified because somebody calls, Beehive Locksmith, how can I help you? Oh, yep, it's the right business. The phone number gets verified, but the number is not related to the locksmith. It's somebody else who is rerouting that traffic from a legitimate business to a fraudulent business who's going to overcharge you. And then going to pay the scammer who set it all up a portion of what they made. How did we find out about this? Well, because of a locksmith in Texas who discovered that his listing had been changed because people were commenting negatively on his Google listing for services that his business did not know about and did not complete. So, Google set about a very large investigation and discovered, if I'm not mistaken, over 10,000, approximately 10,000 fake and altered Google business profiles, all done by one small group. After tracking the group of individuals down, Google has actually filed suit against them for terms of service breach, and likely there's going to be fraud charges to follow on this because they did actively defraud customers. It's a fascinating scam, and apparently was huge, Avram. 10,000 fake or altered businesses all rerouting to somebody else. That's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how do you prove to Google that you're the legitimate business?
Yeah, and so it's a great point. So I have, for the Forge, I have a verified Google My Business listing. So to verify the address, they literally mail you a thing with a code that you have to go verify. Microsoft does the same thing. Bing does the same thing. Yelp does the same thing as well for verifying ownership. But verifying phone number isn't great. to the best of my knowledge, I don't know that they're doing any verification on that. They are doing websites with a CNAME listing on the DNS, and they're doing physical address by sending something to the physical address. But they're not, from what I can tell, they're not doing anything to verify phone number. And to the best of my knowledge, somebody can go in and put in an edit, recommend a change for the phone number on my listing, because I know they can go in and recommend changes to our hours, because they have. Now, I get a notification because I'm actively monitoring all of that stuff, but that's because I'm me, right? Somebody running a diner or a locksmith, or a service like that, they may not be actively monitoring their Google My Business listing or have somebody to do it, which I happen to have somebody helping me with that. But legitimately, I get a push notification from Google Maps on my phone if somebody suggests an edit on Google or Yelp. Probably Bing, but who knows? Is anybody making edits on there? I don't know. Anyway, but I get a notification. But if you're not actively monitoring it, I think it's 30 days and it applies automatically.
Not good. Not good at all.
It definitely seems like now that Google has discovered this, they're going to have to be reactionary, right? If they're going out of their way to sue this group of scammers, it seems like they're going to have to be reactionary on their own service and figure out a way to verify phone numbers. I don't know. It's really interesting, because now I'm curious if that's one of the things that shows whether or not it's verified. Let's see. So if I search for the Forge, yeah, I don't see anything on here. Like you can see that it's a claimed business, but I don't see anything that verifies the address, that shows that it's a verified address. Now, in my case, I know that it is a verified address because I had to go through the process. It doesn't show that the website's verified, even though I went through that process. But then, and I'm signed in as not the business account. Right there at the bottom. Suggest an edit.
Yep.
So, me as whoever I want can come in here and hit suggest an edit, and I can suggest a change to the name, the type, the address, the hours, the phone number, the website, or I can mark that the business is closed. And if you don't respond to it, they may just approve it.
Yep.
Yikes. That is less than ideal. I think they're going to have to put verification in. Show verification status.
Well, Go ahead. Not to jump ahead to our next topic, but if you're worried about this being poisoned by humans, what about AI overviews or other AI generated content about your business?
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it could generate all kinds of negative stuff about your business, or all kinds of incorrect stuff that has a negative impact.
Yeah, there's
your business.
There's a guy in the UK, I think. I'm trying to remember where he is. I think he's somewhere in the UK, and I think his business name has his name in it. And if you do a search for his name, the overview says that he murdered his kids, which he didn't. His kids are fine. It got the right number genders of the kids, all that's correct, except for he murdered 2 of them.
Right.
Yikes.
So,
That'll hurt a business.
and right, and someone could do that to him. I mean, that could
Hmm.
just be an error that
Right.
we can't say why it happened,
Right. That could be a
but it could have
hallucination,
actually
or it could be
could be
poisoned.
poisoning. Yeah. And with I believe, let's say you had a poison page up with that information on it, you could take the poison page down, but it would still be in the training data.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So
There, who is it? Is it Cloudflare? Somebody, somebody has a new service for, I think it's Cloudflare, that is designed to overwhelm the AI or something like that with fake pages and stuff. I've actually got a link open on the other computer. Thank you, Microsoft, for linking my stuff. Cloudflare's free AI Labyrinth. That's what it's called. AI Labyrinth distracts crawlers that could steal website content to feed AI. It's something that I'm very intrigued by. I have not had a chance to dig into how it works, but that's a that's like poisoning for positivity. But then there's this other where you can do all these things through AI or whatever to harm a business or individual. In 2008 or 2012, must have been '08. It must have been Obama's first campaign. I think that's when Rick Santorum was running. And this political activist uh, went on this campaign to get Google to show something gross when somebody searched for the word Santorum. And it was, it was a significantly harder task at that point to try and poison Google's not just data but their actual like search results, right? But he managed to do it. Santorum had to sue Google. It was a whole big thing. It was wild to watch from a tech perspective. I think even in the early days of the show, we probably talked about it because it was truly wild to watch. Today, it can be as easy as, well, the AI labyrinth, or putting up a couple of pages on a couple of domains that all have similar content. Let them get ingested into Gemini. Pull the pages down. Whoop! Too late.
yep, yep,
So there's
yeah,
lots of ways to damage a brand, and this is the kind of thing. This arena, it's possible that Google starts through Gemini starts trying to figure this information out themselves, right? To suggest their
yeah.
own edits. Facebook's been doing it for years, right? Facebook, I have a particular page that's a joke from many, many years ago, and they constantly want to change the type of page that it is. They're like, oh, we think this might actually be one of these. Leave me alone. It's not. It's all a joke. Don't worry about it. So it wouldn't surprise me if we started seeing these edits come from Gemini, and in that case, it's even easier to pull a scam.
Yep,
So
yep. I'm telling you, it's just going to get worse.
yeah,
It's going to get worse and worse. I mean, I think we're. I think what it's going to eventually lead to is people just not knowing what's true and what's not true,
hmm, yeah, because
and therefore they won't believe anymore that that guy killed his kids because you can't trust
hmm,
the result.
right,
So it's going to eventually people will stop believing the bad stuff too because the chance of it being fake is so high.
hmm, yeah. So I was listening to a show this week, and the commentator was talking about conspiracy theories, and his point was, yes, the government has lied, the government has covered stuff up, there's plenty of documentation of it over decades, but Kennedy wasn't assassinated by the CIA, right? Just because, just because, yes, the government has lied and covered things up and the media has helped and whatever, doesn't mean that we didn't land on the moon, or that the Manhattan Project was trying to kill Christians in Japan, right? Like, all these bizarre conspiracy theories that have been around for decades. Yes, the government lies, but it doesn't mean everything's crazy. But you get to that point because you've seen poisoned data, and you've identified that data is poisoned by the same sources that are telling you the truth on this one, but they didn't on this one. So
right, exactly.
You don't trust anything anymore. You just assume that the data source is nonsense, and anything they say, it must be the opposite. We landed on the moon, right? The Earth is round, right? Well, the government tells me, school told me the Earth is round, so it must be flat. Well, that's stupid. It's
right,
a dumb thing.
right.
It's a dumb thing to say out loud, but I get how we get there.
It's a death of authority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And legitimately, sometimes, oftentimes, at their own hand, but that doesn't mean that it's always nonsense. People make mistakes. Computers, however, the more nonsense, the more times Gemini tells people to put Elmer's glue in their mac and cheese, the less likely people are to trust the source at all. And so,
yep.
I called a locksmith. A locksmith came out and then charged me 3 times what I was supposed to pay. Now you don't trust Google or the locksmith. And none of it, Google wasn't actually involved in it. The locksmith wasn't involved in it. Nobody had any idea it was happening. But now you don't trust Google or the locksmith. And you go online to badmouth both of them. And we end up here. So I think Google has a lot of work that they have to do to shore up the quality of what's on Google Maps and their business listings. Yelp would be a great source of process, because Yelp's process is fantastic. I legitimately had to verify the phone number and the physical address, and you can see that the profile is claimed and that it's ours, and people can't make suggestions anymore because we own it. Makes it a very different process. So Google, if you're listening, take a look at how Yelp is doing it, because I think it's a fantastic process. But for those of you using Google Maps for this kind of thing, or Google in general, just remember, anything on the internet can be nonsense. So always check your sources and verify. Somebody shows up in a tow truck doesn't mean that they're the people you called. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. We all know that you get free shipping on millions of products with Amazon Prime, but you get a whole lot more. Like free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Twitch subscription to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, plus a whole lot more. We've got links to all of these features and some of our favorites, plus a 30-day free trial, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. In the early days of generative AI, somebody by the name of Stephen Thaler, let's go with that, created a system called the Creativity Machine and used it to generate a piece of art which was entitled A Recent Entrant to Paradise. When this came out, Stephen tried to copyright it through the U.S. copyright system, and was summarily denied, saying that the definition of an artist required that it be human. Stephen wasn't happy with that, filed suit against the Copyright Office, and has kind of been bounced up the appellate system, landed in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, and a panel of 3 judges unanimously agreed with the Copyright Office. The decision stated that the definition does indeed require it be a human. There are certain stipulations about length of the life of a copyright and things like that that involve the life of the artist, which would not be possible with a machine, for example. And then, for me, kind of hilariously, invoked Star Trek, particularly Data and his misadventures in artistic endeavors, and in particular his poem about his cat. And she said basically that while that the poetry is an example of simulated creativity, though impressive, lacks the human spark required for genuine artistic creation. And so that being even more human-like and creative still would not apply, because Data, in today's definition, and there's a whole episode in Star Trek about the Doctor creating a holo novel and whether or not he actually owned the intellectual property around it. This is something that's been in sci-fi forever. We're living in it now, and the courts are basically saying that if the claimant is entirely the computer, then the works cannot be copyrighted. If a human being was involved in the creation, then it changes. In particular, he listed the computer system as the only author. I truly believe he was testing the limits of the law here, possibly trying to invoke the Doctor from Voyager, and testing what current limits would be. And seems like those limits are pretty hard and fast. Everybody up the chain has agreed. It's definitely an interesting situation. We've talked about it even last week about, what Altman saying that if copyright holds, then we're screwed, or something like that. So we're bumping up against the walls of the box of what copyright are right now, Avram.
Yeah, well, it seems to me there's an easy out for this, though. Like, why can't he, like, who's going to know? Couldn't he claim that he made the art?
So he could claim that he made the system, and therefore he is part of the creation, and therefore could have listed himself as one of the artists and could have gotten it copyrighted. But I don't think he cares about actually copyrighting this piece of art. I don't think he's worried about whether or not people can reproduce this image. I think he was literally testing the bounds of copyright law.
Right.
Which is why
I
he
get
didn't
that.
list himself.
I
But
get
yes,
that. I guess what I'm
100%,
saying.
if you were to list yourself as the artist or even as a co-artist, no problem in copywriting it.
Right. So who's policing that? Right. So
Copyright
I
office
make
right
an
now.
image use. Right, but how do they, like? So for real, right? Like, let's say I want to copyright an image. I go and I generate it 100% in with an image generator, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
Midjourney or it's Bing Image Creator or whatever. I then
God forbid
use
Grok.
that right, and then use that image somewhere, and then I sue someone who hasn't. I sue someone who's taken the image
Mm-hmm.
and used it on their own site, right? Um, the burden, like the burden, is on them to prove that I didn't make it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like
Yeah.
you like a lot of things look AI generated, but
Right.
like you,
There, there's a
the
certain
burden,
color palette, right? That that oftentimes screams AI from certain
right?
systems. There,
But but
but
the burden is on the burden is on the um, is on the defendant,
mhm,
I think, to prove that I didn't. Because, I mean, people generally don't copyright work by submitting it to the Copyright Office.
right,
Usually, you can just have a copyright for doing something. Uh, so then you can go out and sue someone who's taken it without your permission. And then the
right,
question is, like, are they going to fight you in court? If they fight you in court, um, what's the claim going to be? Can they claim fair use? Things like that.
right,
Um, so the claim here would be, hey, that image isn't real. That image wasn't made by a person, so you
mm-hmm,
couldn't copyright it in the first place. Um, Now, the question then becomes, and we may see this case in the law, right? Like, I say I made this image, you have to prove that it's AI generated
right,
in order to beat my copyright claim.
right. Which
How do you
which is
which
chaos.
I think which I think like I don't think the burden I could be wrong, but I don't think the burden is on me to show that I created it. I think the burden is on them to show that I didn't create it.
I think you're right.
So that's that's an interesting question. Now, the other thing the other thing that's going to happen here is we're going to have lots and lots of trademark lawsuits because people generating things with AI, it, containing trademarked stuff. So it's not that the image itself is the expression is copyrighted, but maybe the character or the person or whatever, you know. I tell what's the name of that audio tool? I tell
Mm-hmm.
that supposedly that is supposedly been trained on all kinds of albums.
Yep.
I tell it to create something and it sounds a little bit too much like Taylor Swift and she wants to sue me, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of lawsuits like that. And I don't think that using AI is going to save you. Like, will you be able to say, for example, hey, I went to this? I'm trying to think, what is the name of that service? I think now they just add it to Prime or Spotify, where it'll generate songs for you.
I can't remember. Marlowe was talking
Suno,
about.
Su-
Yeah, I would say Marlowe was talking about this
Suno,
during off camera during CES.
Suno. So I mean, it's not the only one, but Suno is well known, and Suno apparently there have been a lot of studies showing that Suno appears to have been trained on real albums. So Do you think that if you make a song in Suno, you put it out and you try to make money off of it, and then the owner of similar song comes out and sues you, do you think saying I used Suno to generate this will get you out of the lawsuit? I feel like no,
I feel like no.
right? So
Yeah.
you're taking a huge risk because I don't think that Suno or any of these other AI generators, whether they're generating music or text or an image, are indemnifying you against claims, right?
Hmm.
I
So,
mean, think about
so it's interesting. I mostly because I think it's Inception funny. I asked Copilot in the U.S. who has the burden of proof in a copyright suit, and the plaintiff must prove two key elements: ownership of a valid copyright and copying of protected elements. So you have to prove as the plaintiff that you have a valid copyright. And so I then further clarified, what if I generated an image with using AI and then sued, even though it's not copyrightable? It says the burden of proof would still rest primarily with you as the plaintiff. You would need to prove that the image is eligible for copyright protection. If the defendant argues that the image is not copyrightable because it's entirely AI generated, they may also be required to present evidence to support their claim. So, yes, the burden of proof does lie. If you're trying to argue that it's AI generated and therefore can't be copyrighted, if I generate it and I sue you, the burden of proof does legally fall to you to say it's not copyrightable because it's AI and here's my proof, which is a massive undertaking.
right. I mean, think about the lawsuit against Robin Thicke with blurred lines sounding
Mm-hmm.
too much like "Got to Give It Up" from Marvin Gaye, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's such a subtle thing, and they
Yeah.
won, right? So, how the music industry is able to do this? How do you think it's going to play out when you make your song? Maybe you don't even know
Right.
what it was stolen from.
Right. Yeah. So I did a. I don't think we talked about this last week. So I did a class on uh, AI in content creation, and I talked about the tools that you and I talk about, right? Like my favorite tool in the world, Swell, um, and closed loop content versus open content, right? And one of the things I said was, if you're using these publicly trained, publicly used systems, you could potentially be opening yourself up to legal liability for copyright infringement because I can guarantee. What was it called?
Suno, yeah.
Suno? Suno's not going to step in and go, "Oh, our bad. Yeah, we did steal that. Here's your settlement." They're going to go, "No, we didn't do that." And that was him.
Right. Suno said that this is from last year. Suno said admits it was trained on essentially all music files on the internet. It said
All
anything
music
publicly
files,
available.
which means, which means, uh, YouTube.
Right.
Yeah. Which means all of the music videos from whatever that company is, Vero or Vimo or somebody knows what I'm talking about, please put it in the chat. But yeah, if they ingested all of that, yeah, all of a sudden now you're potentially in trouble.
Yeah, right. So who's in trouble? Who's in trouble? Suno or you? If you make the song, you.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you ask it to do it and it does it, you asked it to do it. If you take it and then use it for something, you took that content. Yeah. If you're pulled over with a stolen phone in your car, even though you bought it from somebody, it's not going to keep you out of trouble. Now, right. If you can prove that you bought it from somebody, it might lessen the trouble you're in, but it's not going to, ignorance is not a defense in court.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's all dangerous. We talked a little bit ago about the dangers of screwing up, Google business listings and stuff. It's not great. None of it's good. There's lots of danger there, and as a user of the internet, you should always be aware that the little notification at the top of Copilot that says, "Oh, it's not there once you've asked questions." That's even better. Before you ask a question, Copilot says, "I may make mistakes. Please be careful." But apparently, once you ask once you start talking to it, it goes away, which is the best. Totally on brand. But yeah, that's not good enough. That's not going to keep them out of trouble, because if I get sued, they're going to get sued too, right? It's not going to. They're going to come after me because I'm the one that created the music. But if I say I used Suno, guess who's getting added to the lawsuit? Because there's pockets to go after. You're not going to get anything out of me. You might get the microphone and the computer we're talking about upgrading, but you're not going to get a whole lot out of me. But you're going to get something out of Suno. So, but having that on your public history, it's not as bad as ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever it is lying about you and your kids, but it's certainly not great. All right, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. I saw some chatting happening in the chat room before my right-hand screen turned off for some reason. If you didn't join us live tonight, would like to in the future, Sunday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio, so long as that screen's on. Give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about it. I do have some chat over here. I saw Lex Talon talking about it's certainly not on brand, which I have to assume is a reference to Microsoft. So definitely join us. If you can't join us live, that's okay. PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows. F5 Live, Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, Unboxed, How To, and a whole lot more. Of course, all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. I mentioned earlier that this week on Tuesday, you'll see some live content coming out on our Twitch stream coming from Synapse Summit. It's going to be a different version of PLUGHITZ Live Presents at Synapse this year. You'll have to join us live to see that in action. We're teaming up with a couple of new partners on it. It should be a lot of fun. So definitely check that out. And then, of course, afterwards, it'll show up in the PLUGHITZ Live Presents feed, just like CES does. There's still products over here, just off screen, that there's a bunch of content coming for as well. So look forward to that stuff as well. And I think with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you back next time. Ciao.